The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor. Elena Hartwell didn't flinch. She'd grown used to her father's temper, the way his face turned crimson when things didn't go his way, the vein that pulsed at his temple like a warning signal. What she hadn't grown used to was the fear that now lived permanently in her chest, the kind that made her ribs feel too tight. Bankrupt? Her mother's voice cracked on the word. Margaret Hartwell, always so composed, so perfectly put together, looked like she might faint. "Richard, what do you mean we're bankrupt?" "I mean," her father growled, loosening his tie with jerky movements, "that unless we find a way to secure $20 million in the next 48 hours, we lose everything. The company, the house, your precious country club membership, all of it." Elena stood frozen in the doorway of her father's study, still in her engagement dress from the brunch earlier that day. Ivory silk that had cost more than most people's cars. Adrian had proposed last month, and they'd spent the afternoon celebrating with 200 of their closest friends and family. Her cheeks still ached from smiling. How is this possible? Margaret's hands trembled as she reached for the desk to steady herself. The Hartwell name has stood for. The Hartwell name is about to become synonymous with failure, Richard snapped. He poured himself 3 fingers of scotch and downed it in one gulp. Unless. Elena's stomach dropped at the pause. She knew that tone. It was the same one he'd used when he'd arranged for her to date Adrian Blackwood in the first place, the son of his biggest investor, a strategic match that would strengthen business ties. She'd convinced herself she loved Adrian. She had to. What other choice did she have? Unless what? Margaret asked. Richard's eyes, cold and calculating, finally landed on Elena. "Come in, darling. Close the door." She obeyed, her heels clicking against the hardwood with each reluctant step. The study smelled like leather and cigar smoke, old money, and older secrets. Photos lined the walls, 3 generations of Hartwell men who'd built an empire. And now her father was about to watch it crumble. "There's someone who's offered to save us," Richard said slowly. "Someone willing to pay off every debt, inject capital into the company, restore everything." "Who?" Elena's voice came out smaller than she intended. "Damien Rousseau." The name hit the room like a physical blow. Margaret actually gasped. Elena's mind raced, trying to place it. Rousseau. Rousseau. Why did that name sound familiar? "You can't be serious," Margaret whispered. "After what happened?" "After what we did to his family, you mean?" Richard's laugh was bitter. "Oh, he's very serious. He came to my office yesterday with a contract already drawn up." Elena's pulse hammered in her ears. "I don't understand. Who is Damien Rousseau?" Her parents exchanged a look, one of those loaded glances that spoke of secrets Elena had never been privy to. She was 24 years old, and suddenly she felt like a child again, watching her parents communicate in a language she didn't speak. 20 years ago, Richard began, his jaw tight, there was a business deal. A partnership with Marco Russo. Things went wrong. "You destroyed him," Margaret said quietly, something that might have been shame flickering across her features. "You stole his patents, ruined his reputation, drove him to." "I did what I had to do to survive," Richard cut her off. "Business isn't personal. He killed himself, Richard. Marco Russo killed himself because of what you did. His wife died of grief a year later." Margaret's voice was hollow. "They had a son. A little boy." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. "Damien. He was 7 when we destroyed his family," Richard said, "and there wasn't even a hint of remorse in his tone. Now he's 37 and one of the most powerful men in the country. Made his first million by 25, first billion by 32. He built an empire on rage and the need for revenge. And now he wants to collect," Elena said softly. "Not quite." Richard pulled out a folder from his desk drawer. "He wants you. The words didn't make sense at first. Elena stared at her father, waiting for the punchline, the clarification. But Richard's face remained serious, and Margaret had turned away, her shoulders shaking. What do you mean, he wants me? Marriage. Richard slid the folder across the desk. 210 days of marriage to Damien Rousseau. In exchange, he pays off our debts, saves the company, and ensures we maintain our lifestyle. After the 210 days, you can divorce. Clean, simple, done. Elena's laugh came out strangled. You're joking. You have to be joking. I'm engaged to Adrian. The wedding is in 3 months. The invitations have been sent, the venue is booked. Adrian's father pulled his investment this morning, Richard interrupted. Without it, we're finished. The wedding is off. No. Elena shook her head, backing toward the door. No, you can't just, Adrian and I love each other. Do you? Richard's question was sharp. Or did you love the idea of him? The stability, the approved match, the easy path. The words stung because they carried a grain of truth Elena had spent months trying to ignore. She cared for Adrian. She did. But love? The kind of love that made your heart race and your palms sweat? The kind that kept you up at night? She'd convinced herself that wasn't real, that it was childish fantasy. This is insane, Elena said. Why would he want to marry me? If he hates you so much, why would he? Because marrying you, making you his wife, having power over the daughter of the man who destroyed his family, that's the ultimate revenge. Richard's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing a business merger and not his daughter's life. He gets to humiliate us, control us, and when he's done, he discards you. It's brilliant, really. Cruel, but brilliant. Elena's knees went weak. She grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. And you're going to let him? You're just going to hand me over like I'm part of a business transaction? You are part of a business transaction, Richard said coldly. You always have been. Why do you think we pushed you toward Adrian? Love? He scoffed. This family survives because we make strategic choices. Richard, Margaret's voice was pleading now. There has to be another way. She's our daughter. And she'll do her duty to this family, just as we all have. Richard's tone left no room for argument. Unless you want to lose everything. Unless you want to watch me put a gun in my mouth like Marco Russo did. Is that what you want, Elena? The manipulation was crude, obvious, and it still worked. Guilt crashed over her in waves. She thought of her younger brother, Michael, away at Princeton. Thought of her mother's charity work, the life they'd built. Thought of the staff who depended on Hartwell Industries for their livelihoods. When? The words scraped out of her throat. He wants an answer by tomorrow morning. The wedding would be in 3 days. 3 days. She was supposed to marry Adrian in 3 months, and instead, she'd be married to a stranger who hated her family in 3 days. I need to see the contract, Elena heard herself say. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Richard handed her the folder. Elena's hands shook as she opened it. The legal language swam before her eyes, but certain phrases jumped out: duration of marriage, 210 days. No grounds for early termination. Wife agrees to reside in husband's primary residence. All public appearances to be made jointly. He wants me to live with him. Elena's voice cracked. It needs to look real. Richard said. The media can't suspect it's anything but a genuine love match. If this gets out as a business arrangement, it defeats the purpose. Elena kept reading, her horror growing with each clause. He expects me to attend social functions with him. Play the devoted wife. Share a bedroom. The contract specifies separate bedrooms, Richard said quickly. He's not asking for that. Small mercies. Elena wanted to laugh or cry or scream. Maybe all three. What about Adrian? She whispered. What about him? Richard's tone was dismissive. He'll find someone else. These things happen. These things happen. As if she was returning a dress that didn't fit, not abandoning the man she'd promised to marry. I need to talk to him, Elena said. I need to explain. No. Richard's voice was firm. You'll cut all contact with Adrian Blackwood. That's one of Rousseau's conditions. No contact with any ex-partners during the duration of the marriage. That's barbaric. That's business. Richard checked his watch. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to give your answer. But Elena, his voice softened slightly, the first hint of fatherly concern she'd heard all night. If you say no, we lose everything. Everything. Can you live with that? Could she? Elena looked at her parents, her father, whose mistakes had led them here, and her mother, who'd spent her whole life playing the role of the perfect society wife. Was this her destiny too? To sacrifice herself on the altar of family obligation? I need air, Elena said, turning toward the door. Elena. I said I need air. She fled the study, her heels catching on the runner in the hallway. She kicked them off, not caring where they landed, and ran. Through the foyer with its crystal chandelier and imported Italian marble. Past the formal living room where they'd hosted Adrian's family for dinner just last week. Out the French doors and into the garden. The October air was cold against her skin, raising goosebumps on her bare arms. The engagement dress that had felt so beautiful this morning now felt like a costume, a joke. She made it to the fountain at the center of the garden before her legs gave out. She sank onto the stone edge, her breath coming in gasps. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Her phone buzzed in the small clutch she'd somehow managed to keep hold of. Adrian. Had the best time today, beautiful. Can't wait to make you my wife. Love you. Elena's vision blurred with tears. She should call him. She should warn him. But what would she say? Sorry, Adrian, but my father sold me to his enemy to save the family business. Hope you understand. Another buzz. This time, an unknown number. I'm sure your father has explained the situation by now. I'll pick you up at 10 a.m. tomorrow for coffee. We should discuss the terms of our arrangement in person. Don't be late. I hate waiting. Dar. The audacity of it stole her breath. He was so confident she'd say yes. So certain he had her cornered. Elena stared at the message for a long time. Then she looked up at the house, her family's mansion, 5 generations of Hartwell history contained in brick and mortar. Lights glowed in every window. From here, it looked warm, inviting, perfect. From here, you couldn't see the rot underneath. Her phone buzzed again. Adrian, asking if she was okay. She typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally turning off her phone entirely. The fountain burbled beside her, water flowing endlessly in circles. Trapped in an endless loop with no escape. She understood the feeling. Somewhere in the city, Damien Rousseau was probably celebrating. He'd finally found a way to destroy Richard Hartwell, not by taking his money or his company, but by taking his daughter. By turning her into a pawn in a game that had started before she was even born. Elena closed her eyes and made a decision. Not because she wanted to. Not because she had a choice. But because sometimes, survival meant sacrifice. And she'd spent her whole life being the good daughter, the obedient one, the girl who colored inside the lines. Maybe it was time to see what happened when those lines were erased entirely. She'd meet Damien Rousseau tomorrow. She'd look him in the eye. And then she'd sign her life away for 210 days. After all, how bad could it be? The thought was naive, and somewhere deep down, she knew it. But Elena let herself hold on to it anyway, that small kernel of hope. She'd need it for what was coming. Because Damien Rousseau hadn't built an empire on mercy. And revenge, once set in motion, was almost impossible to stop. Elena didn't sleep. She spent the night alternating between pacing her bedroom and staring at the contract until the words blurred together. 210 days. 7 months of her life, bound to a man who hated everything she represented. At 5 a.m., she gave up on sleep entirely and stepped into the shower, letting scalding water wash over her until her skin turned pink. She wanted to scrub away the previous night, the conversation, the choice that wasn't really a choice at all. By 9:30, she was dressed in a navy blue Chanel suit, armor disguised as fashion. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek low bun, her makeup flawless despite the dark circles she'd expertly concealed. If she was going to meet the man who would own her for the next 7 months, she'd do it looking like she couldn't be broken. Even if that was a lie. Her phone had 17 missed calls from Adrian. She'd turned it back on at dawn, a moment of weakness. His messages had evolved from concern to confused to hurt. "Elena, what's going on? Your dad's secretary called. Said the engagement party is cancelled. Baby, please call me. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. I love you. Talk to me." Each message was a knife between her ribs. She typed out a response 3 times and deleted it 3 times. What could she possibly say? The truth would destroy him. A lie would be kinder, but she'd never been a good liar. In the end, she sent nothing at all. At 9:45, she walked downstairs with the signed contract in her Birkin bag. Her father was already in the foyer, looking haggard but relieved. Her mother was nowhere to be seen, probably couldn't bear to watch this transaction play out. "You signed it?" Richard asked, though he could clearly see the answer in her posture. "What choice did I have?" Elena's voice was flat, emotionless. She'd cried herself dry during the night. Now there was just nothing. A hollow space where her future used to be. "You're doing the right thing for this family. Don't." Elena held up a hand. "Don't pretend this is noble. You gambled with money that wasn't yours, made enemies you couldn't handle, and now I'm paying the price. At least have the decency not to dress it up as heroism." Richard flinched, but before he could respond, the doorbell rang. Not the gentle chime of their usual visitors, this was sharp, demanding, impossible to ignore. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. 9:58 a.m. Even his punctuality felt like a power move. The butler, James, opened the door, and Elena's breath caught in her throat. Damien Rousseau was not what she expected. She'd imagined her father's enemy as some corporate shark in a too-tight suit, maybe balding, definitely bitter. The man standing in her doorway looked like he'd been carved from dark marble by an artist who understood that beauty could be brutal. He was tall, at least 6 feet 3 inches, with shoulders broad enough to block out the morning sun streaming through the door. His suit was black Armani, tailored so precisely it looked painted on, emphasizing every line of muscle underneath. Tattoos crept up from his collar and peeked out from his cuffs, intricate designs that spoke of a history Elena couldn't read. His face was all sharp angles, chiseled jaw, high cheekbones, a nose that had maybe been broken once and healed stronger. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold. Dark, intense, and utterly unreadable. This was not a man who had ever begged for anything in his life. This was a man who took what he wanted and destroyed anyone who stood in his way. "Mr. Hartwell." Damien's voice was deep, smooth as aged whiskey with an edge that could cut. He didn't offer his hand. "I see we're all punctual. Good. I hate wasted time. Mr. Rousseau." Richard's voice was tight with barely suppressed rage and humiliation. "My daughter can introduce herself." Damien's gaze slid past Richard like he was furniture and landed on Elena. Something flickered in those dark eyes, assessment, calculation, maybe a hint of surprise. It vanished so quickly she might have imagined it. Elena Hartwell. It wasn't a question. He said her name like he owned it. Like he'd already catalogued everything about her and found her, what? Wanting? Acceptable? Irrelevant? Mr. Russo. Elena was proud of how steady her voice came out. She descended the last 3 stairs with her head high, channeling every etiquette lesson her mother had drilled into her since childhood. I believe we have a coffee date. One dark eyebrow lifted slightly. Is that what we're calling it? Would you prefer business meeting? Transaction finalization? The sale of my soul? She smiled, sharp and brittle. I'm flexible with terminology. Something that might have been amusement ghosted across his features. Careful, Elena. That almost sounded like you have a spine. We wouldn't want to give anyone the wrong impression. The barb hit its mark, but Elena refused to flinch. I signed your contract. It's in my bag. Witnessed and notarized as of 7 this morning. Eager. Damien's smile didn't reach his eyes. Or desperate. I suppose it doesn't matter which. The money will be transferred this afternoon, Richard interjected, clearly uncomfortable with the charged atmosphere. As we agreed. I don't recall inviting you into this conversation. Damien's tone could have frozen hell. In fact, I recall specifically requesting to speak with my fiancée alone. Unless you'd like me to reconsider the terms of our agreement. Richard's face went purple, but he stepped back. Elena had never seen her father back down from anyone. The power shift was dizzying. Shall we? Damien extended his arm, a mockery of gentlemanly behavior. Elena looked at his arm like it might bite her. Underneath the expensive fabric, she could see the definition of muscle, the hint of more tattoos. Everything about him screamed danger, and she was about to willingly walk into it. She placed her hand in the crook of his elbow. His arm was solid as steel under her fingers, radiating heat even through the suit. He smelled like sandalwood and something darker, more complex. Expensive cologne that probably cost more than her dress. Try to look less like you're walking to your execution, Damien murmured as he led her toward the door. We're supposed to be madly in love, remember? Love at first sight. Elena's voice dripped sarcasm. How romantic. Oh, we'll work up to that. Today, we're just 2 people who can't keep their hands off each other. His smile was predatory. Think you can manage that? Before Elena could respond, he'd guided her out the door where a sleek black Bugatti waited. Of course he drove a car that cost more than most houses. The door opened automatically, no driver, she noted. He wanted privacy. Smart. Or terrifying. Possibly both. Damien opened the passenger door for her, a gesture that would have been chivalrous from anyone else. From him, it felt like a test. Elena slid into the butter-soft leather seat, hyper-aware of how her skirt rode up slightly, how exposed she suddenly felt in this confined space. He rounded the car with the grace of a predator and folded himself into the driver's seat. The car rumbled to life with a growl that vibrated through Elena's bones. Seatbelt, he said, not looking at her. I'd hate for my investment to get damaged before we even make it to the altar. Your investment. Elena clicked the belt into place with more force than necessary. Is that what I am? What else would you be? Now he did look at her, and the intensity of his gaze made her breath hitch. Did you think this was about you, Elena? You're just the weapon I'm using to destroy your father. Don't flatter yourself into thinking you're anything more. The words should have hurt. They were designed to hurt. But Elena had spent the night building walls around her heart, and she refused to let him see them crack. Where are we going? She asked instead, watching as they pulled away from the only home she'd ever known. Somewhere we can talk without your father's cameras recording every word. Damien shifted gears smoothly, the car accelerating with barely a whisper. He has 3 surveillance cameras in that foyer, by the way. 4 in the study. Your family really doesn't trust each other, do you? Elena's stomach dropped. You hacked our security system? Please. Your security system is laughably easy to access. I've been watching your family for months. He said it so casually, like admitting to stalking was perfectly normal. I know your father takes his coffee black with 2 sugars. I know your mother sees a therapist every Tuesday at 3 p.m. I know your brother failed his midterms but paid someone to change his grades. And I know, he glanced at her, something dark flashing in his eyes, that you've been taking anti-anxiety medication for the past 2 years. Elena felt violated, exposed, stripped bare. You have no right. I have every right. Damien's voice was cold. You're about to become my wife. I needed to know exactly what I was purchasing. Due diligence, they call it in business. I'm not a company you're acquiring. Aren't you? He smiled without humor. Your father certainly treated the negotiation that way. Tried to drive up the price, haggle over terms. I almost admired the audacity, selling his daughter like she was prime real estate. Elena's nails dug into her palms. She wanted to scream, to cry, to throw open the car door and roll out onto the highway. Instead, she forced herself to breathe, to think, to survive. If you hate my family so much, why not just destroy us financially? Why go through this charade? Because money isn't enough. Damien's hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles going white. For the first time, she saw the rage he kept leashed beneath that controlled exterior. Your father took everything from me. My family, my childhood, my innocence. He made me watch my father die and my mother fade away. Money can't balance those scales. But making him watch as I take his perfect daughter, his precious Elena, and turn her into my wife. Making him live with the knowledge that every night, you're in my home, under my control, bearing my name. That's a start. The venom in his voice made Elena's blood run cold. This wasn't just revenge. This was personal, primal, a wound that had festered for decades. I was 4 years old when your father destroyed my family, Elena said quietly. I didn't even exist when he made those choices. Why punish me for his sins? Because you benefited from them. Damien's jaw clenched. Every luxury you've enjoyed, every privilege you've taken for granted, it was built on the corpse of my family's dreams. You want me to feel sorry for you? You want me to see you as innocent? You're not. You're complicit in every way that matters. So what's the plan? Elena heard the brittleness in her own voice. You marry me, parade me around, humiliate my family, and then what? Divorce me after 7 months and call it even? Something like that. But he didn't sound convinced. He sounded conflicted. No. That was wishful thinking. Men like Damien Russo didn't do conflicted. They drove in silence for another 10 minutes, leaving the city behind. Elena watched the familiar streets give way to highway, then to a more rural area she'd never visited. Finally, Damien pulled off onto a private road that wound through dense trees. Where are we going? Elena asked again, this time with a thread of fear woven through the words. Relax. I'm not planning to murder you. Damien's smile was razor-sharp. You're worth more to me alive. For now. The road opened up to reveal a stunning property, a modern architectural masterpiece of glass and steel that seemed to emerge from the landscape itself. It jutted out over a cliff face, offering views of the valley below that probably cost more than Elena's entire neighborhood. Welcome home, Damien said, and the word curdled in Elena's stomach. For the next 210 days, anyway. He parked in front of the main entrance, a massive glass door framed by black steel. The house looked cold, impersonal, nothing like the warm historical elegance of the Hartwell mansion. It looked exactly like the man who owned it, beautiful, intimidating, and completely unforgiving. "I thought we were getting coffee," Elena said, not moving to unbuckle her seatbelt. "I lied." Damien killed the engine and turned to face her fully. "We need to discuss the rules of our arrangement, and I prefer to do that on my territory. Where you can't run. Where you can't hide. Where there's no one to save you if you decide to back out. The contract is signed. Contracts can be broken." He leaned closer, invading her space, and Elena pressed back against the door. "But if you break this one, Elena, your family doesn't just lose their money. They lose everything. Your father's reputation, your mother's social standing, your brother's future. I'll make sure the Hartwell name becomes synonymous with failure, fraud, and shame. Do you understand?" Elena's throat was dry. "Yes." "Good." Damien's smile was cruel and beautiful. "Now get out of the car. We have a wedding to plan, and I want to make sure you understand exactly what you've agreed to." He exited the vehicle with fluid grace, leaving Elena sitting in the passenger seat with her heart hammering and her mind screaming at her to run. But there was nowhere to go. No escape hatch. No rescue coming. She'd signed the contract. She'd made her choice. Now she had to live with it. Elena unbuckled her seatbelt and stepped out into her new reality, the door of Damien Rousseau's fortress closing behind her with a sound like a prison cell locking. 210 days. She could survive anything for 210 days. Couldn't she? The inside of Damien's house was exactly as cold as Elena expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows dominated every wall, flooding the space with natural light that somehow made everything feel more sterile rather than warm. The furniture was minimalist, black leather, chrome, sharp angles. No family photos, no personal touches, nothing that suggested a human being actually lived here. It was more museum than home, a carefully curated display of wealth without warmth. "Impressive," Elena said, her heels clicking against the polished concrete floors. "Very, emotionless. I prefer efficient." Damien shrugged off his suit jacket, draping it over a chair with casual grace. The movement revealed more of his tattoos, intricate geometric patterns that wound up his forearms, disappearing beneath his rolled-up sleeves. "I don't need throw pillows and scented candles to feel comfortable in my own space. No, you just need cold hard surfaces and the knowledge that you've successfully isolated yourself from any human connection." Elena set her bag down on a glass coffee table. "Very healthy." Damien's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Elena. We're not married yet. I can still change my mind about this arrangement." "Can you?" She turned to face him fully, channeling every ounce of false bravado she could muster. "Because from where I'm standing, you've invested a lot of time and energy into this revenge plot. Walking away now would make you look weak. And I don't think your ego could handle that." For a moment, something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed, a dark, rich sound that sent shivers down her spine. "There it is," he said, moving closer with predatory grace. "The fire I saw in your eyes when you walked down those stairs. I was beginning to think you were going to be boring. Compliant. Where's the fun in breaking someone who's already broken? I'm not something for you to break." Elena held her ground even as he invaded her personal space, stopping mere inches away. This close, she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I'm a person. With thoughts, feelings, dreams that don't involve being your revenge puppet." "Were." Damien's voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. "You were a person with dreams. Now you're my wife. Or you will be in 3 days. Those dreams? Consider them postponed." He reached past her, so close she could smell his cologne again, and picked up her bag. Before she could protest, he'd opened it and extracted the contract. "Let's review the terms, shall we?" He moved to the massive sectional sofa, sprawling across it like a king on his throne. Sit. It wasn't a request. Elena considered refusing just to spite him, but the exhaustion from her sleepless night was catching up with her. She sat on the opposite end of the sectional, as far from him as physically possible. Damien noticed. Of course he noticed. His smile was sharp enough to draw blood. Rule number 1, he began, flipping through the contract. You will reside in this house for the duration of our marriage. No exceptions. If you try to leave without my permission, the contract is void. So I'm a prisoner. You're a wife. His tone suggested there was no difference. Rule number 2, you will attend all social functions, business events, and public appearances with me. We will present as a united, loving couple. No cracks in the facade. Your acting skills better be exceptional. I can play pretend, Elena said coldly. I've been doing it with Adrian for 2 years. Something flickered across Damien's face, too quick to read. Ah yes, Adrian Blackwood. Your ex-fiancé. Which brings me to rule number 3, no contact with Adrian or any other romantic interests. Your phone will be monitored. Your emails, your social media, everything. If I catch you reaching out to him, there will be consequences. Elena's hands clenched into fists. You can't seriously expect. I can and I do. Damien's voice was final. You belong to me now, Elena. Every minute of every day for the next 210 days. Adrian Blackwood no longer exists in your world. He'll think I abandoned him. That I'm a monster. Good. Let him think that. Let everyone think that. Damien leaned forward, elbows on his knees. The story we're selling is that you and I had a whirlwind romance. Love at first sight at some charity gala 3 months ago. We've been seeing each other in secret because we knew our families would disapprove. But love conquered all, and we couldn't wait another moment. It's disgustingly romantic. It's a complete lie. The best love stories usually are. He continued reading. Rule number 4, we will share public spaces but maintain separate bedrooms. I'm not interested in consummating this marriage. This is business, not pleasure. Relief flooded through Elena, though she'd never admit it. At least you have some boundaries. Don't mistake practicality for mercy. Damien's eyes were hard. I don't want you that way because you're Richard Hartwell's daughter. The thought of touching you, of giving you even a moment of pleasure, makes my skin crawl. This isn't about protecting you. It's about not contaminating myself. The words landed like physical blows. Elena had been called many things in her life, but never contaminated. Never something to be avoided like a disease. You're disgusting, she whispered. I'm honest. He flipped another page. Rule number 5, you will not discuss the true nature of our arrangement with anyone. Not your friends, not your mother, certainly not your brother. As far as the world knows, we're madly in love. Breaking this rule voids the contract immediately. So I'm supposed to lie to everyone I care about. Welcome to my world. Damien's smile was bitter. I've been lying about who I am for 30 years. Trust me, you get used to it. Elena studied him, really looked at him, for the first time since they'd entered the house. Beneath the expensive clothes and the carefully controlled exterior, she could see the edges of something raw. Pain, maybe. Or rage so old it had calcified into something harder. What happened to you? She asked quietly. After my father destroyed your family. Where did you go? That's not part of the contract. Damien's expression shuttered closed. My past is none of your concern. It is if I'm going to be married to you. If I'm going to live in this house, play the devoted wife, I deserve to know who I'm dealing with. You're dealing with someone who will destroy you if you step out of line. He stood abruptly, the contract dangling from his fingers. That's all you need to know. But Elena wasn't ready to let it go. She stood too, closing some of the distance between them. You were 7 years old. A child. You lost everything. Where did you go? Foster care. Relatives. Stop. The word was a command, backed by barely leashed violence. Did you have anyone? Did anyone help you? Or did you have to survive alone, a little boy with nothing and no one, watching the world move on while you? I said stop. Damien's control snapped. In 2 strides, he was in front of her, his hand wrapped around her upper arm, not bruising, but firm enough to make his point. You don't get to psychoanalyze me. You don't get to feel sorry for me. I don't need your pity or your compassion. I need your compliance. That's it. Elena's heart hammered, but she refused to look away. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. But even as he said it, his grip loosened slightly. His thumb brushed against her skin, whether intentional or accidental, she couldn't tell. The touch sent electricity racing up her arm. I've spent 30 years becoming someone your father couldn't destroy. Someone powerful enough to take everything from him the way he took everything from me. Don't mistake me for some tragic hero in need of saving. I'm the villain in this story. Elena. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. Maybe I don't want it to be easy. Elena's voice came out breathier than she intended, awareness of his proximity making her dizzy. Maybe I want to understand. Maybe I want to know why revenge matters more to you than. Than what? Happiness? Peace? Moving on. Damien's laugh was hollow. He released her arm and stepped back, running a hand over his close-cropped hair. Those are fairy tales for people who haven't had their souls ripped out. I don't get to move on. I don't get to heal. All I get is this, he gestured at the house, at the contract, at her. A chance to make your father feel a fraction of the pain he caused me. And after? Elena asked. After 210 days, after you've had your revenge, what then? Does the pain go away? Does any of this actually make you whole again? Damien's jaw clenched. It doesn't matter if it makes me whole. It matters that he suffers. That's not living. That's just, existing in a perpetual state of anger. Says the woman who's been existing in a perpetual state of obedience. Damien's words cut deep. You want to lecture me about how to live? You, who was about to marry a man you didn't love because daddy said so. You, who spent your entire life being the perfect daughter, never coloring outside the lines, never taking a risk. At least my pain has purpose. What's your excuse? Elena felt the air leave her lungs. Because he was right. God help her, he was right. I was trying to be good, she said quietly. I thought if I was good enough, perfect enough, maybe I'd deserve the life I had. Maybe I'd earn my place in the world. And how's that working out for you? But Damien's tone had lost some of its edge. He sighed, suddenly looking tired. We're both trapped, Elena. Just in different cages. The moment of vulnerability disappeared as quickly as it came. Damien's walls slammed back into place, his expression hardening. The wedding is in 3 days, he said, all business again. Saturday afternoon at the estate garden behind this house. Small ceremony, 50 guests, mostly business associates and press. Your family will attend, of course. We need the photos. 3 days, Elena repeated numbly. I need to, there's so much to plan. The dress, the flowers, the... Already handled. Damien moved to a side table where a thick portfolio waited. I've hired the best wedding planner in the state. She'll be here tomorrow morning at 9 to go over details with you. The dress is being custom-made based on your measurements. Yes, I had those too. Don't look so surprised. I told you, I've been watching your family for months. Elena's skin crawled at the thought. You really are a stalker. I prefer thorough. He handed her the portfolio. Everything you need to know is in here. Guest list, ceremony timeline, reception details. Memorize it. I won't tolerate any mistakes on our wedding day. Elena flipped through the pages, her disbelief growing with each one. He'd thought of everything. The flowers, white roses and calla lilies. The music, a string quartet playing classical pieces. The menu, a 5-course meal that probably cost more than most people's cars. Even the wedding favors were detailed, elegant boxes of imported chocolates. This is insane, she breathed. This level of planning takes months, not days. Money makes everything faster. Damien checked his watch, a Patek Philippe that probably cost 6 figures. Speaking of which, I have a meeting in an hour. I'll have Marcus drive you back to your parents' house to collect your things. My things? You're moving in today. He said it like it was obvious. The master bedroom is upstairs, second door on the left. Your room is the third door. It's already furnished, but if you hate it, we can redecorate. I don't particularly care. Elena's mind reeled. Today? I can't just, I need time to. The contract is signed, Elena. The money has been transferred to you. Father's accounts. As far as I'm concerned, you're already mine. He walked toward the door, clearly expecting her to follow. Marcus will help you pack. Take whatever you want from your room. Everything else stays with your family. You're starting fresh. I don't want to start fresh, Elena said, but she was following him anyway, drawn along by the sheer force of his will. I want my life back. Damien stopped at the front door, turning to look at her with something that might have been pity if he were capable of such an emotion. Your old life is over, he said simply. The girl who was going to marry Adrian Blackwood and live happily ever after in suburban bliss. She's gone. Dead. In her place is Mrs. Damien Rousseau. And Mrs. Rousseau doesn't get to pine for what was. She gets to survive what is. He opened the door, revealing a different car, a Mercedes SUV this time, with a driver waiting patiently behind the wheel. Marcus will take good care of you, Damien said. He's been with me for 10 years. Loyal, discreet, and under strict orders to make sure you don't run. I'm not going to run. Elena lifted her chin. I signed the contract. I keep my promises, even when they're made under duress. Good. Damien's expression was unreadable. Then I'll see you tonight. Dinner is at 7. Don't be late. I hate waiting. Elena descended the steps toward the Mercedes, every movement feeling surreal. Was this really her life now? 3 days ago, she'd been planning a wedding to Adrian. Now she was being escorted by a security guard to collect her belongings so she could move into her captor's house. No. Not captor. Husband. The word tasted bitter on her tongue. Elena. Damien's voice stopped her at the car door. She turned back, squinting against the sunlight. He stood in the doorway of his glass fortress, backlit and imposing. For what it's worth. I'm sorry it has to be this way. But if there were another path to destroying your father, would have taken it. You're just collateral damage. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Elena called back. No. His smile was sad and terrible. It's supposed to help you understand that this isn't personal. Even though I know it feels that way. He disappeared back into the house before she could respond, the glass door closing with a soft click that somehow sounded like a cell door slamming. Marcus opened the car door for her, his expression professionally neutral. He was older, maybe 50, with kind eyes that suggested he'd seen too much in his years of working for Damien Rousseau. Ma'am, he said quietly as she slid into the back seat. If it helps. Mr. Rousseau isn't as cruel as he pretends to be. Could have fooled me, Elena muttered. Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Pain makes people into things they're not. The man I work for, he's been in pain for a very long time. Maybe you'll be the one who finally helps him let it go. I'm not a therapist, Elena said. And I'm certainly not here to save him. No, ma'am. You're here to survive him. Marcus started the engine. But sometimes, survival and salvation look a lot alike from the outside. As they pulled away from Damien's fortress, Elena looked back one last time. She could see him through the massive windows, standing alone in all that empty space, surrounded by expensive things and crushing solitude. For just a moment, one single, traitorous moment, she felt something that wasn't quite pity and wasn't quite compassion but lived somewhere in between. Then she remembered the cruelty in his words, the ownership in his touch, the way he'd reduced her entire existence to a weapon in his war against her father. 210 days. She counted them like a prisoner counting down a sentence. Because that's exactly what this was. The drive back to the Hartwell mansion felt longer than it should have. Elena watched the landscape pass in a blur, her mind still stuck in that glass fortress with a man who looked at her like she was both a weapon and a burden. Marcus drove in comfortable silence, only speaking when necessary. Elena appreciated that. She wasn't ready for small talk or sympathetic platitudes. She needed to think, to process, to figure out how she was going to survive the next 7 months without losing herself completely. Her phone buzzed. Again. Adrian's name lit up the screen for the 18th time that day. Her thumb hovered over the answer button. One last conversation. One chance to explain, to apologize, to say goodbye properly. Damien would never know. Marcus seemed kind enough, he wouldn't report her for answering a phone call. But even as she thought it, she caught Marcus's eyes in the rearview mirror. Kind, yes. But also employed by Damien Russo. And Damien had made it very clear, no contact with Adrian meant no contact. Elena declined the call and turned off her phone. The Hartwell mansion looked different in the afternoon light. Smaller, somehow. Less imposing. Or maybe it was Elena who had changed, who had spent a few hours in Damien's world and come back seeing everything through new eyes. Take all the time you need, ma'am, Marcus said as he opened her door. I'll be right here. Elena nodded and walked toward the house on unsteady legs. James opened the door before she could reach it, he'd probably been watching from the windows, waiting for her return. Miss Elena. His formal tone couldn't hide the concern in his eyes. Your mother is in the conservatory. She's been worried. Of course she had. Elena had left this morning as her father's daughter and come back as Damien Russo's future wife. The shift was seismic. I need to pack, Elena said quietly. I'm moving out today. James's expression flickered, surprise, sadness, resignation. I'll have the staff assist you. Shall I send someone to? No. Elena cut him off gently. I need to do this myself. But thank you, James. For everything. The older man's eyes grew suspiciously bright. He'd worked for the Hartwell family for 30 years, had watched Elena grow from a baby to a woman. Now he was watching her leave. You've always been the kindest of them, he said softly. Whatever happens, Miss Elena, don't let them take that from you. Elena's throat tightened. She managed a nod before heading toward the conservatory, where her mother's refuge had always been. Margaret Hartwell surrounded herself with flowers and light when the weight of being Richard Hartwell's wife became too much. The conservatory was exactly as Elena remembered, glass walls, terracotta tiles, hundreds of plants creating a small jungle in the middle of their mansion. Her mother sat among the orchids, still in her silk robe though it was well past noon, a cup of tea growing cold in her hands. Mom! Margaret's head snapped up. For a moment, Elena saw her mother as she really was, not the polished society wife, but a woman who'd made compromises until she'd forgotten what she'd compromised away. Elena. Margaret set down her tea with shaking hands. I heard the car. I thought maybe. I hoped you'd changed your mind. The contract is signed. The money's been transferred. Elena sat in the wicker chair across from her mother. There's no changing my mind now. That man, Margaret's voice cracked. Your father told me who he is. What happened to his family? Oh, Elena, I'm so sorry. If I had known, if I had any idea that Richard's past would come back like this. Would you have done anything differently? Elena asked, not unkindly. Would you have left Dad? Would you have stood up to him? Margaret's silence was answer enough. I didn't think so. Elena reached over and squeezed her mother's hand. We all make choices, Mom. We all tell ourselves we're doing what we have to do to survive. Maybe that. What makes them human? Margaret finally looked at her daughter, really looked at her. When did you get so wise? About 3 hours ago, when I realized I don't have a choice but to be. Elena stood. I need to pack. Marcus is waiting to take me back to Damien's house. You're leaving today? Margaret's composure cracked. But the wedding isn't for 3 days. Surely you could stay here until. No, Mom. I can't. Elena knelt beside her mother's chair, taking both her hands. If I stay, I'll convince myself there's a way out. I'll torture myself with what-ifs. It's better this way. Clean break. Nothing about this is clean, Margaret said, tears spilling down her cheeks. My baby girl, sold to pay for her father's mistakes. What kind of mother lets that happen? The kind who doesn't have a choice either. Elena wiped her mother's tears with gentle fingers. Don't blame yourself. This is Dad's doing. His debts, his enemies, his consequences. You and I. We're just trying to survive the fallout. Will I see you? Before the wedding? Of course. Elena forced brightness into her voice. The wedding planner is coming tomorrow. Maybe you could be there. Help me choose between the white roses and the other white roses. Margaret managed a watery laugh. I'd like that. Good. Elena kissed her mother's forehead, breathing in her familiar perfume, Chanel No. 5, same as always. Some things never changed. I love you, Mom. Even if I don't say it enough. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. Margaret clung to her for a moment longer. Be careful. With Damien Rousseau. Men like that, they don't know how to do anything halfway. When they love completely. When they hate just as completely, Elena finished. I know. Trust me, I know. She left her mother among the flowers and climbed the grand staircase to her bedroom, the room she'd occupied for 24 years, with its cream walls and antique furniture and photos of a life. Welcome to my channel, please subscribe, thank you. The drive back to the Hartwell mansion felt longer than it should have. Elena watched the landscape pass in a blur, her mind still stuck in that glass fortress with a man who looked at her like she was both a weapon and a burden. Marcus drove in comfortable silence, only speaking when necessary. Elena appreciated that. She wasn't ready for small talk or sympathetic platitudes. She needed to think, to process, to figure out how she was going to survive the next 7 months without losing herself completely. Her phone buzzed. Again. Adrian's name lit up the screen for the 18th time that day. Her thumb hovered over the answer button. One last conversation. One chance to explain, to apologize, to say goodbye properly. Damien would never know. Marcus seemed kind enough, he wouldn't report her for answering a phone call. But even as she thought it, she caught Marcus's eyes in the rearview mirror. Kind, yes. But also employed by Damien Rousseau. And Damien had made it very clear, no contact with Adrian meant no contact. Elena declined the call and turned off her phone. The Hartwell mansion looked different in the afternoon light. Smaller, somehow. Less imposing. Or maybe it was Elena who had changed, who had spent a few hours in Damien's world and come back seeing everything through new eyes. "Take all the time you need, ma'am," Marcus said as he opened her door. "I'll be right here." Elena nodded and walked toward the house on unsteady legs. James opened the door before she could reach it. He'd probably been watching from the windows, waiting for her return. "Miss Elena." His formal tone couldn't hide the concern in his eyes. "Your mother is in the conservatory." She's been worried. Of course she had. Elena had left this morning as her father's daughter and come back as Damien Rousseau's future wife. The shift was seismic. Wouldn't cooperate. She powered it on. 23 missed calls from Adrian. 15 text messages. 3 voicemails. She shouldn't listen. She knew she shouldn't listen. She pressed play anyway. "Elena, baby, what's going on?" Adrian's voice, confused and hurt. "Your dad's secretary called off the engagement party, and now you're not answering your phone. Did I do something wrong? Please, just call me back." Second voicemail, "Elena, I'm starting to worry. It's been 6 hours. Your mom won't tell me anything, your dad hung up on me. What the hell is happening? Whatever it is, we can fix it together. That's what couples do. Just, please, talk to me." Third voicemail, his voice was different now. Flat. Broken. "I saw the announcement. Richard Hartwell's daughter engaged to tech billionaire Damien Rousseau, wedding this Saturday. Fast work, Elena. I guess I was just, what? A placeholder? Something to do while you waited for someone richer to come along." A long pause. "I thought we had something real. I thought you loved me. I guess I was wrong about a lot of things. Don't bother calling back. We're done." Elena's hand trembled so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Adrian thought she'd left him for money. Thought she was just another gold digger, another shallow socialite who traded up when a better offer came along. She wanted to call him, to explain, to make him understand. But what would she say? "I'm being forced into this marriage to save my family from bankruptcy." That would only make him want to save her, and Adrian couldn't save her. No one could. Not from Damien Rousseau. Better to let him hate her. Better to let him think she was shallow and mercenary. Better to let him move on cleanly, without the guilt of leaving her in an impossible situation. Elena deleted the voicemails. Then, with shaking fingers, she blocked Adrian's number. The finality of it hit her like a physical blow. She sank onto her bed, the same bed where she'd dreamed of her future with Adrian, where she'd convinced herself that comfort was the same as love, and let herself break. She cried for the life she'd never have. For the man who would hate her forever without knowing why. For the girl who tried so hard to be good, to be perfect, to be enough, only to end up as collateral damage in a war that started before she was born. She cried until there were no tears left, until she was empty and hollow and clean. Then she stood up, wiped her face, and finished packing. By the time she carried her suitcases downstairs, she'd rebuilt her walls. Composed. Controlled. The perfect society daughter who'd learned how to smile through anything. Her father was in the foyer when she descended. Richard looked older than he had that morning, the weight of his choices finally showing in the lines around his eyes. "Elena." He reached for her, but she stepped back. "I know you're angry." "I'm not angry," Elena said, and she was surprised to find it was true. Anger required energy she didn't have. "I'm just done. With the lies, the manipulation, the idea that any of this is okay. You sold me, Dad. You sold your daughter to save your company. I'm going to honor the agreement because I keep my promises. But don't expect me to thank you for it. Don't expect me to understand or forgive. Just, stay out of my way. Richard's face crumpled. Elena, please. I had no choice. There's always a choice. Elena's voice was steady, final. You chose your company over your daughter. You chose your pride over my happiness. Now live with it. She brushed past him without another word. Marcus was waiting by the Mercedes, and he took her bags with gentle efficiency. Ready, ma'am? He asked softly. Was she? Would she ever be? As ready as I'll ever be, Elena said. She slid into the back seat and didn't look back as they pulled away. Not at the mansion where she'd grown up. Not.